So it's gonna be a tutorial today. So let's start with a new project and call this whatever you want. So I'm just gonna call it tutorial planner. Nothing that special, just create. You could pick whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Now create it and edit it. So it looks pretty intimidating, but we're not going to do any 3D stuff today. Go on to the 2D tab and let me explain. This is where all your files are. So like your art, your music, whatever your game is gonna have. This is where the nodes are. I'm gonna explain what the nodes are in a few seconds. So there's a couple more things. Importing, yeah, you know that. Yeah, these up there. Then like these tabs, we have no scripts right now, but a little asset library which I'll not be using. And then we have this, which is the properties of the nodes. I mean the node that you're selecting. So let's start with a 2D scene. Just gonna call it world. And put down and say Control C or Command C and save it. Then add a scene, click Evernode, and say kinematic. Search up kind, so we get kinematic body 2D. Though, and it has to be this running guy, and he has to be blue. If it's a running guy that's pink, then that's the 3D. We don't want that. So now, it's complaining. This node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. Consider adding a collision shape or collision polygon 2D as a child to define its shape. Okay, let's ignore that for a little bit, and let's add a sprite. If you have, not an animated sprite, just a sprite. If you already have some art for it, then great news, you could put it there, but I don't. So let's put in this. Now, it's the scroll wheel to zoom in. So zoom in on your character, and it's still complaining. So, actually, I'm gonna rename him to player. And then let's add a collision shape 2D, just what it wants. So now it's complaining, and what it's gonna say, a shape must be provided, and a shape must be provided a function. Please create a shape resource for it. What this means is that it doesn't know what shape it is. So we don't need any of this fancy stuff. Only if you're making a bigger game, then you might need it. But let's pick a new rectangle shape 2D. Now drag these points out to about the size of your art. If you have a prepared art, and you have like a character standing up, then you might need I don't remember its name already. So do Control S or Command S. And let's go to the world. Now click this button, and this button is gonna add our player's scene. Now, what a scene is it's a different place. So here we have a different world. Well, now if you see this little thing, then that means that it's not saved. So save it again, and let's add the player in. Now, you could press F6, or you could press the play scene button, which it says there's a shortcut F6, which I'm gonna do. So run the scene, and you should see this little guy appear. Now let's give the player a script. This is just the basics, but delete all these comments. And let's add a variable. This is going to be motion. You could call this velocity, or position if you're a really bad programmer, because this is not about like position. So vector 2 dot 0. What it says, what a vector is just a space. It's just a coordinate. So vector 2 is a coordinate in 2D space. Vector 3 is a coordinate in 3D space. Now when we're saying 0, that means we're at 0, 0. So let's add a new function. And this can be physics process, like this. Now press enter, and you're gonna get a tab. So you might be familiar with if statements. Now let's check for an input. So when we're checking for any kind of input, we first start off with input and then dot. And then if we want to check for a key pressed, then we say is action pressed, because there's all these kind of very fancy things. And we're gonna say UI right and the colon at the end, so it doesn't, and say pass, so it doesn't argue with us. Now, if you don't know where this comes from, click project. So click on it, project settings, and there's all this stuff. Don't be intimidated by it. Just go to the input map. Now in here we see all these things, but we're necessarily focusing on UI right, UI up, UI left, and where is it? UI down. Yeah. So what you can see is they all have something assigned to it. So UI left has left, and we're not going to be focusing on this. This is for, of course, you know what this means, D-pad left. But you could, of course, look around in here, but let's not focus on that. What we're going to do is motion.x, so we're saying on the x-axis, or moving on the x-axis because it's right, equals to, let's add a new variable. This is going to be speed. And let's make our character speedy, 1000. And say speed. Now, if you play the scene right now, pressed right, he shouldn't move. This is only the right arrow key, it's not WASD yet. You could add WASD. And if you want to add WASD, go to project settings, input map, and go to where the stuff is, then left, and press the plus button and key. And the key like left would be A. So all that. But we're not moving. And that's because we have to update the scenes. So how we update the scene is we're going to say motion equals to motion. I mean, this is a better way of doing it. But this is a beginner tutorial, so we're just going to say move and slide, and the first argument will be motion. Then we need to define which way is up. So of course, up is up. So we're gonna say vector 2.up. And now he should move because we're moving with the motion. So let's test this out. I'm gonna select the current scene. And he shouldn't move. Why is that? Well, wait a second. Am I super dumb? Yeah, he should move, but he never stops moving. First of all, let's add an let's add the ever direction, so motion.x equals to negative speed. So positive speed will make us go right because positives are right and negatives are left. So what we should be left with is this. And this was very hard to manage. So we're going to say, so what we're going to do is add E and L. So what this means is else. But if is just a shorter way of saying else and then if after it. So what that makes it is so we could now say else and set motion.x to 0 so he doesn't move. Now he should move. Now I'm going to make him a little bit slower, so half that. And you should have this up and running. Now let's make some gravity. Of course, if we have gravity, we need to have something that he could fall on. So let's add not a kinematic body, we're going to add a static body. So, because we don't want this to move. And the static body needs all the things that the kinematic body needs. So let's add a sprite. Of course, the sprite is going to be this. Now, what I'm going to do is make this ginormous platform. And then we need to add a collision shape to it because we want the player to collide with it. So, adding a rectangle 2D, play it over here, and yank. And for example, if we put this here, then he'll just fall right through it because it's above him. So we need to put it like this. So save it. As it says, we're not saved. And then in the player, let's define not a variable, let's define a constant. A constant is just a variable that you can never change in your code. So when we define it, we say const, but it's actually constant. So and we want to make this capital. I have no idea why, but you just need it. And then gravity, let's say 10. 10 is a good one. And so now for moving left and right, we have motion.x. So what is it for down and up? Of course, it's motion.y. But then we're going to say plus equals. When I say equals, we're gonna set it to that value. But plus equals says I'm gonna add it to myself. So add a gravity to yourself, and I'm more used to the WASD key, so I'm just gonna quickly add D, and now he should fall down. Now you can play around with this value. I like 25, it's a good value. Now let's make a jump. Right before gravity pulls us down, which is right here, we're going to check if we want to jump. So let's check for the input again, and we're checking for UI up. So if you're a gamer like me, W. And now say that is action pressed, say UI up. And then we're going to say .y. Let's define another variable. This is going to be a variable just because sometimes maybe we want to change it. So set it to jump height. I have no idea if that's how I spell it, but let's set it to something really high, like 1000. So I know we did it right. So, but on the x-axis, negatives are up and positives are down. So we have to say negative 1000. Then we would say set the jump height, and then you're gonna see this, a beautiful thing. So I'm gonna set it to half of it. I'm gonna make the gravity bigger, 45. Now I can set this to 1,000, now 700. That should be good. Now you could play around with this, but let me give you some time to play around with it. Are you done? Okay, so let me tell you the problem. You could jump infinitely. And the second problem is that, let me just make this a little bit smaller. See how fast we go down? Now, this is actually really easy. This is where this comes in, where we're defining what's up. Because we're defining what's up, so it could use three functions. Is on floor, is on wall, and is on ceiling. Because it knows what up is, so the first problem is to make it so you can't jump infinitely. Let's say and is on floor. So run your project and that should fix it. So, but then we still have this problem where we go down insanely quickly. So, let's wait for a little while and then we just go insanely. So, what we're going to do is right click on this and then right. Or you could just go here and press tab, but I like to do that. Now, of course, make a new line and make it 1. Let's tab, then the motion.y, already applied, and say if not is on floor. But if you're a Java coder like me, you could erase the not and say question exclamation mark. So now the problem where you can jump infinitely is gone, and you don't do that. So this is it for now, because this is enough information smacked in your head. Bye-bye. Oh my god. No. Stop the recording.